In the dim light of dusk, Agent Lara Croft pulled up outside the isolated barracks at Fort Bragg. She got out of her plain car and looked with determined eyes across the empty parking lot. It had been more than a year since Private Jacob Sparrow's body was found in the woods near the barracks. There were no signs of foul play in the death. The military cops never found out what happened with the case, and it has been cold for a long time. But something about it had always bothered Croft, who was an experienced Army SID agent with a strange knack for finding secrets no one else has found. As she walked into the barracks, she showed her ID to the young private, who was working as a guard. She told him straight out, "I need to get into Sparrow's old room." It was clear that Croft's strict attitude made the private nod uncomfortably, and he led her down the lonely hallway. She went into the small rooms that hadn't been used since Sparrow died. Croft started carefully going through his things that he had left behind, looking at every paper document and electronic device for hints. She carefully searched the room for 2 hours with only her flashlight to light her way. Most of what she found was boring, like textbooks, uniform accessories, and personal pictures. But then she saw a flash of light stuck behind the worn cushion. Croft took out an unlabeled flash drive and curiously plugged it into her laptop. She was met with a digital treasure chest that made her gasp for air after getting past the security. The drive had records of Sparrow's secret online actions that she had never thought about. She used forums on the dark web to look at all kinds of illegal and disturbing topics. He was a regular poster on a number of sites run by an unknown person who went by the name Manga. From what Croft learned, it seemed like Sparrow may have found something much scarier than she had thought while searching the web late at night in secret. As she hacked into a CC at the barracks, her heart beat faster. Sparrow had found proof that Manga's sites were being used for illegal activities like selling guns, laundering money, and more. It looked like he was actively looking into the crime and gathering evidence to give to the police. But someone must have heard about his plans and shut him up before he could blow the lid off of their whole operation. At that moment, Croft's phone buzzed in a scary way. When she opened the text message, there was a blurry picture of Sparrow's Kia dog tags and a scary message that said, "Leave it alone if you want to live." He was brave enough to cross Manga, and it cost him a lot. Do not go through the same mistake. Croft's jaw was set in determination as she removed the threat when no one replied. Whoever this Manga was, he had no idea what kind of person she was. If he tried to scare her into not telling the truth, it was just the start of her research. Agent Croft knew she had to move quickly before someone could find her. She spent the night carefully making a digital identity to get into Manga's secret sites in her dimly lit safe house flat. By dawn, she had made up Liam Brooks's full online history and digital record. Brooks was a disillusioned ex-serviceman who wanted to make money any way he could. Croft, pretending to be Brooks, nervously input the scary URL into her Tor browser after taking Sparrow's login information from his computer. The dark spot had a scary red glow to it. As she looked through the forums, she was shocked by the shady business that was going on in the background of the internet. Guns, drugs, and even people were being sold for the greatest dark wealth. Croft gathered her courage and started talking, slipping in hints about her plans to commit a crime. Within hours, unknown people started calling Brooks with rich offers that were too good to pass up. They planned to meet at an empty building to drop off weapons, but they walked right into Croft's trap. She secretly recorded proof that was very bad for them on her devices as witnesses to their crimes. Even though taking out that first cell led to useful information, Croft knew it was just the beginning of Manga's huge business. She carefully mapped the group's digital footprint coming from their secret spots for days. It became clear that all roads went back to a remote compound deep in North Carolina's Nantahala National Forest as they looked over financial records and shipping manifests. At night, Croft put together a kit of supplies and packed her SUV. For a reconnaissance trip, she would be going on by herself. She was on quiet mode as she drove through the narrow back roads. The thought of what she might find made her adrenaline rise. Using GPS, she found a chain-link fence around a large lodge that was set back from an old logging road. Croft saw armed guards walking around the edge, while infrared and scout cameras looked around in the dark. She hid in thick brush for a long time and watched everything that happened while writing down every detail. The days turned into weeks as they watched the bad things going on inside those walls. Croft saw piles of illegal drugs, guns, and even cages full of people waiting for unknown outcomes. People in the ranks only knew their mysterious boss, Manga, as the person in charge of everything. As her investigation got closer to revealing his whole bad business, she gathered a huge amount of information. She had been there, but no one had totally missed her. One night, as Croft was packing up her hideout before it got dark, she noticed movement in the distance. Before she could do anything, armed people came out of the dark. As she ran for cover in the thick bush, gunfire broke out as her pursuers closed in. The chase was on. As Agent Croft shook her way through the tall trees, adrenaline rushed through her. Her hot breath came out in short, rough bursts. Gunshots could be heard in the darkness behind her, and some of them were too close to be safe. From her work as a surveillance officer, she knew these woods like the back of her hand. Her skills at following animals in the wild were the only thing that kept her one step ahead of the armed men. Croft came up with a plan to turn the chase around as it went on. It was on purpose that she left her winding path and went straight ahead to a small opening. When the shooters broke through, thinking it would be easy to kill her, she set her trap. Croft fired accurate shots at them from where she was hidden, killing 2 attackers before they could respond. She took the gun away from the last scared man and held him at gunpoint until she got an answer. She put her hands behind his back and said, "Take me to your boss." He didn't want to lead the way through the trees to the faraway lights, but he had to. Croft quietly watched from afar as the property came into view through the trees. She moved in the middle of the night with her prisoner when she saw an open hatch to the basement level. As she walked through the dim hallways, a noise drew her to an open study. Croft looked inside and saw a person hunched over a fire that was full of papers. With her gun trained on the man who stood still, she asked, "Manga, I presume." He turned around and smiled at her in a scary way. "Agent, you've given me a lot of trouble. But tonight is the last day." Croft's hostage ripped out of his handcuffs and into the fight before he could reach for the gun on the mantel. During the fight that followed, a shot was fired. The prisoner was dead when the smoke cleared. He had been hit in the chest by a single bullet. Manga stood on top of him, his fingers still on the trigger and his eyes filled with anger. "You will pay for this interference." Croft got into a brutal fight with him and used all of his skill and strength to beat the bigger thief. Once she had the upper hand, she pushed him against the stove and grabbed the burned pieces inside. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." The dog tags of Sparrow, which were the last piece of the puzzle, were clenched in her hand. Manga's empire was based on the last war, making plan that Sparrow had found and threatened to reveal, which ultimately cost him his life. As backup arrived, sirens sounded through the night. Manga was caught and his whole system was taken apart, so justice was finally done. As the police put up a fence around the property, Agent Croft let out a sigh of relief. When the truth came out, she made it clear that she would go after anyone who did wrong, no matter where they were hiding, even in the darkest parts of the internet.